All right. Hello, everyone. I am Donald Burlock, and I am so delighted that you are taking a few minutes to spend with me today. And hopefully, you're in a really comfortable position. As you could probably tell, I'm in my living room and I'm in my most comfortable chair. And I hope that you are sitting somewhere and you have your notebook ready or your iPad or your MacBook, whatever you have in front of you, even if it's just post-it notes so you can capture some of the things that we'll talk about today. I want to thank first and foremost Flagship and Split, obviously, for bringing me on today and giving me the opportunity to share something that I'm deeply passionate about, which is creativity. And I believe that creativity is probably something that you're going to hear over and over again as you listen to the speakers in this conference. We understand creativity brings tremendous value. And because of that, I believe that today's conversation is going to only add to what you already know about the power of creativity. So, with that, as I give this little bit of a banter, hopefully you have found something to write with and you have found yourself in a comfortable position. And we'll deep breath because we need to breathe more. That's a superpower, by the way. And we'll dive right in. So, like I said, I'm Donald. Welcome to my living room. And the thing that I feel is the most consequential for you to take away today is that we all have superpowers. We hear this term all the time: superpowers in fiction, superpowers when you're on the interview. Stop for a moment and just raise your hand in the chat, or if you have someone else around you, and think about it. How many times have you heard that question? What is your superpower? If you were asked that question in an interview, what would you say? If your kids, if you happen to have kids, asked you what your superpowers were, what would you say? So just take a moment before we go any further and think about it. And, it could be fictional superpowers for those of you who are into DC or Marvel or any of the comic universe. Perhaps there's a fictional superpower that you would really love. And then think also about if you were in the interview, if you were interviewing with a tech company, perhaps, and they asked you that question, what would you say? Would you go right to talking about your strengths, your innate abilities? Would you talk about what you do with people? Would you talk about what you do individually? We get this question all the time, and I thought that this question might be the perfect way to begin our conversation on creativity. Now, you may be wondering, how am I going to connect superpowers with creativity? Well, we'll get there. Today's topic is scaling a culture of creativity. Now, you might be wondering, how am I going to connect this question about superpowers to creativity? We'll go through that process together. We'll go through the journey together. But for those of you who are here, who are innovation chasers, game changers in your industry, who are working in engineering or design or strategy, really almost any field that is relevant to the topic of innovation and change is going to benefit tremendously from understanding how to scale a culture of creativity in your organization. This is something that starts with us as individuals. It amplifies beyond us to our greater teams and groups that we partner with, and ultimately our community inside the organization and outside the organization. So, if you've already jotted down your superpower, just put that aside. Some of you might have jotted down 2 or 3. That's cool. Just lay that aside. We'll come back to it. The first thing that I really want to establish with us is, for those who might be asking, is the culture of creativity relevant even now in the context of the virtual realm? I want to say a resounding yes. Because right now, here we are, virtually connected, and we're having a conversation in a way that perhaps even just a decade ago, we couldn't have had. You see, the very nature of creativity invites us to examine the things that resonate the most deeply with our core. And then we leverage those things so that we're able to do more and be more. Now, when I talk about doing more and being more, I ascribe a term that I'm going to use throughout the rest of this presentation. It's really easy to hang on to. It goes with the superpowers question. It is a term I call superhuman. It's a familiar term. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. We've used it colloquially for athletes or musicians or any person, any individual that we see who seems to go above and beyond what can be naturally accomplished. We see this in business. We see this in industries where there's a tremendous amount of resistance or challenge to a goal. And yet these individuals continue to deliver time and time again to the point where the results are game changing, life altering, and in many cases are pivotal for that organization. We might colloquially describe them as superhuman, as individuals who are delivering day in and day out. But here's the secret: superhumans aren't just doing great things for themselves, they are doing great things because they recognize there's a tremendous amount of amazing things at stake for their teams, for the groups, for the community, and for their organization. So they power by way of their creative core. That's the first thing I want you to take away. Your creative core is absolutely pivotal to being superhuman. So I want us to first understand that all of us have creativity innate in our core. And we also know that creativity offers tremendous value not only to our own lives, but in the lives of many others. There is so much empirical evidence that creativity is the very fuel that we need pouring through our organizations in order to create innovation. And so our creative core is foundational to being superhuman. So, in order to do more and in order to be more, we have to leverage our creative core. To leverage our creative core, we have to understand that we all have superpowers. And these superpowers are all of the different types of elements that we ascribe as our strengths and our innate abilities that we can leverage. The challenge, though, is a lot of times we don't understand how to leverage those innate abilities. So, more often than not, we have a creative core that goes stale. And we also will sometimes find ourselves saying, I don't know how to be creative, right? Well, this is where I come in and I spend a lot of time thinking about how to present creativity to people in a way that is very approachable. You see, I've spent my entire career over the last decade helping individuals, helping teams, helping groups be creative on demand. I've worked at consultancies where we are partnering with huge organizations that have to lead innovative ways into their company. And often they find themselves trying to understand how to approach something creatively. So I have gained a ton of experience over the years unlocking the creative abilities that everybody in the room has. The way that I do that is by design, it's intentional. In fact, if it wasn't by design, there would be no way to repeat it. So, the first thing that I really want you to understand is your creative core has tremendous value, and your creative core is really what you can leverage in order to do more and to be more. So, a lot of times in the process of trying to be creative, right, we are also looking for a way to repeat the moments that we recognize we did something that was really incredible. We recognize that our creativity led to that great answer to a question, to that great result on a project. But when we need to repeat it, we can't seem to do that. The by design process is what leads you to take what is your creative core and to continue to build on that, to build on the superpowers that make up that creative core, all those innate abilities and strengths. And from that, you are able to deliver results time and time again, just as an individual, right? So, when I say by design, it's an intentional process that is, as we know, many of us in this room, is quite human centered. It's built on a value system that says to be open minded. It's built on a value system that is very, very much strengthened by empathy, by empathetic approaches to audiences that are different from even those in the room, the customers you might be serving, the teams that you need to partner with. And so by design, you can strengthen your creative core. So, how do you understand this creative core? Well, there are three parts to it. In fact, I call it the three C's of creativity. The three C's of creativity is fundamentally the most important takeaway from our talk today. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, your creative core is what fuels superhuman lifestyles, which ultimately lead to these life changing results. You can apply this in your own organization. You can also apply it outside of your career path in your own life journey. I believe that the creative core that we all have, it can be leveraged. And if you leverage it well, you will see an amplified growth in what you seek out to accomplish. Now, the creative core is made up of the three C's that you see here playing on the screen. There's consciousness, connection, and community. Now, what we'll do for the last few minutes of this talk is unpack each of these. And I really want to emphasize that these three C's are only the kernels of a really amazing creative journey. You're going to understand other elements that might also come into play, perhaps collaboration, perhaps vision. There are other elements that we see that also lift up the creative core. But I believe these three C's are the most pivotal. So we'll start with consciousness. Consciousness is an awareness. It's an awareness, and it's being open-minded. It's being aware of the different opportunities, the different paths of exploration. It is allowing yourself to be aware and open in terms of possible pathways to explore your own creative journey. We tend to silo ourselves as much as possible in what feels comfortable, especially within organizations. You would be surprised how often I would sit with a client and would learn that they have an analogous team, but they never talk. Or there's a portion of the organization that has a highly relatable solution, but the two never connect. And so, by way of being conscious, not only are you aware of the dynamics of what's available in terms of resources within your organization, but you also become deeply aware of the people in your organization. When you talk about topics of diversity, inclusion, belonging, this all begins with an individual level of consciousness that will amplify to a community level if first identified on a personal basis. So I invite all of us, when we come into the room, whether it's a brainstorm, whether it's a conversation about diversity, or even just a conversation about different teams working together. And I will take us through different practices that will increase the open mindedness, the awareness, and the empathy that we could have for others that we are creating experiences for. Now, as we share a collective consciousness, meaning as we are more open minded, more considerate of the other needs and values that other individuals are bringing to the table, as we think about the experiences that we are generating through what we're bringing to life for the market, ultimately we start to see connections. Now, the connections that we make are, in many ways, the result of a high level of consciousness. The connections are really what leads to innovation. We are going to begin partnering in ways that we can never imagine. The ways that we approach finding solutions is different because now we're open minded and we're listening. We're actually aware of different opportunities that might be intersecting. We're aware of the trends. We're even aware of the types of things that perhaps we need to dismantle, a bit of creative destruction, if you will, some of the silos that might exist. The connections foster more communication, they foster more collaboration, and as I mentioned earlier, even more vision. And when you start to see connections in your organization, you begin to see a culture that is eager to find ways to do more and to be more. Our conversations about social good, our conversations about our impact on the environment, our discussions about diversity, and even our conversations about how to just get a culture that is more excited about bringing new things to life, that is happening in an organization that is fostering all types of levels of connections and is celebrating it. The mere fact that you are bumping into someone either virtually or physically and having a conversation where you're learning, either learning about each other's experiences or culture or interest, those are incredible moments and they can lead to some amazing results. And when you have enough of those happening, you start to see the community of creativity grow. And now you have a culture that is celebrating um, any and every moment where the community can come together to contribute concepts. We see this in all types of ways. We see this in terms of ideation sessions. We see this in terms of crowdsourcing ideas, even within the organization. All of that is representing a culture that has emerged from a community of people who are excited about making connections and who are conscious of the possibilities that we can achieve when we stay open minded and when we're seeking out opportunities for our own creative core to grow. So, what did we discuss today? Because I know that was a lot. We discussed the 3 C's of creativity: consciousness, connection, and community. We discussed how those 3 C's of creativity, those 3 C's of creativity are absolutely foundational to your creative core. It is by design that we work that creative core. You're going to work that creative core using your superpowers. I work that creative core using my superpowers. Our innate abilities and strengths, the things that people look at us and say, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And on top of that, some other superpowers that we can learn, right? Because we can always continue to learn. Those superpowers are working our creative core. And as we do this intentionally, as we take our vision, our empathy, our high levels of intelligence, our ingenuity, as we bring our ability to woo, as we bring our ability to perhaps even generate concepts in a session, all of those different types of superpowers, all of those things that people ascribe to us as incredible, will begin to work that creative core. We'll see a higher level of consciousness, we'll see a higher level of connection, and we'll see a greater pool within the community, more interactions within the community. And over the course of time, we start to build not only a scalable culture of creativity, but I believe a scalable culture of superhumans, people who are not only given to great results because of building their creative core for themselves, but who are also given to doing incredible things, not only for their team, their groups, their communities, but also beyond the organization. And those individuals we recognize as being the ones who are here at conferences like this one today. They are the game changers, they are the innovation chasers, they are the superhumans who are going out there doing incredible things and they are delivering life-changing results. So I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation. I hope it was a way for you to perhaps get some inspiration for how you could scale a culture of creativity and some terms to describe it, but also at the same time, a chance to leave with some practical application to understand that bringing a culture of creativity to your world isn't as hard as it sounds, and that we can truly all be creative on demand if we begin to approach our world in this way. So, thank you so much. Again, I'm Donald Burlock. Would absolutely love to continue the conversation with you online. Please reach out. And I want to also thank Split and the flagship conference again for giving me the opportunity to share with you today. Thank you.